First, let me thank you all for being here. I will make this a bit snappy because I'm supposed to be at the Federal Executive Council meeting this morning, so I need to do and go join back my colleagues. But let me start by first thanking CSR-in-Action, SITEI, my colleagues in Ministry of Petroleum Resources and NNPC, other partners who have put hands together to make this possible. I think that since we started this whole session in 2012, when the whole concept of sustainability in the extractive industry conference was conceived, a lot has been achieved, and every year it seems to grow in leaps and bounds. Today I'm asked to talk about establishing a framework for globalizing our economy. And I think, for me, there are two aspects to this. The first, of course, is opening our local economy to foreign participation in a way that sets us to be attractive and competitive, not just in Africa, but around the world. The other, of course, is strengthening our local economy in such a way that the local economy itself can take advantage of an extra border foray into investment in other territories. So there are two components to this, and both of them really go hand in hand. Unless you get your local economy sufficiently robust and strengthened, you probably cannot play an international role. And unless you do that, you're probably going to have foreign investors excited about coming here. So let me take the very first one, which is how do we look at our local economy and how do we strengthen it? First item, of course, is infrastructure. How do we build a sufficiently robust infrastructure that enables cost of productions to be at the lowest level, makes doing business in Nigeria to happen with a lot of ease? You take, for example, the oil experience. Frankly, if you look at our infrastructure over the last 30, 40 years, we have not made sufficient efforts to replace them. And so we're getting to a critical point where, whether it's crude oil pipelines, whether it's refinery product conveyance pipelines and all that, everything looks to be in a state of decay. And so we have a real major challenge over the next 5 years. We almost have to create a Marshall Plan to begin to replace literally all our infrastructure. And nowhere is that very apparent, like in the refining sector, where, although we produce oil and we're one of the major OPEC producers, we're still in a situation where we're importing the bulk of our petroleum product needs. And that's because the infrastructure aspects of our refinery have not been maintained at the same levels that other countries, in fact, nearby countries have continued to do this. You look at Ghana, you look at Ivory Coast, and what has happened, the same refineries that are about the same ages are working at over 90% capacity. So there's an absolute urgency for us to begin to address infrastructure. And it's sad that in the years where we made so much money, petroleum prices were over $110 a barrel, we never put back sufficiently enough into rebuilding a robust infrastructure. And we're now faced with those challenges at a time when global oil pricing is basically suffering. So infrastructure is key. The next is local capacity, and I think we've done a fairly yeoman's job in local capacity area. We've got an NCDMB to do a fairly fantastic work, I think, getting attention to how to, at least within the oil sector, attract the opportunities for Nigerians who really are interested in investing in providing services in the sector. I would say we're probably about 70% gone. There's still a huge 30% factor that moves more into the much more complicated areas. When, for example, we're going to have our first FPSO built in Nigeria. If countries that have done well in this have set timelines for themselves and tried to match that. So one of the things I've been working on with my colleagues in this sector is to say, in the next 10 years, can Nigeria take a position that all FPSOs to be utilized in Nigeria are built in Nigeria? And they will begin to work towards that through very deliberate policies. Because what NCDMB Act has shown us is that unless you have a deliberate approach to addressing the need for Nigerians to participate upfront in this, it never happens. It is very convenient to import literally everything and say with reasons why you can't. So in every aspect of our economy, we need to begin to do that. And I'm hoping that the successes of NCDMB will, quite frankly, lead the Assembly, and I know they're already beginning to do that, to see how they can transport the learning experience of those local content policies in the oil sector to the rest of the areas of the economy. So we need to build that capacity. NCDMB is, I know, financing about 5 industrial parks as part of their projects now. If we succeed in being able to create more of those industrial parks in a way that builds in power provision, builds in infrastructure, builds in a lot of regulatory customs-related issues, and provides necessary tax holidays into these industrial parks, you'll find, quite frankly, an emergence of centers of production and investment excellence, and that would be a good kickoff. So That's one of the things we'll be working on with state governments. We need to support local entrepreneurs. There is a hidden cultural difficulty in Nigeria. The average Nigerian who does well is almost vilified. And that attitude has got to change. All over the world, those who get and do well in developing the local economy are, quite frankly, celebrated. And until we begin to give sufficient attention to encouraging those who put their money here rather than take them abroad and invest them, you are not going to have a growth in this sizable mix. So people like Dangote and the rest of them, and all those individuals who have done substantially well in terms of putting money back into this economy, we need to find a way of making things easier for them. And as it concerns the oil sector, look at local producers. And what advantages are we giving them as they take on some marginal fields and begin to bring them production? If you look at the books of NPDC, it's replete with a lot of success stories of Nigerians who have taken marginal fields that were abandoned by multinationals and made, quite frankly, some glaring successes out of them. How do we benchmark cost of production using those individuals? So we need to begin as a conscious policy, not just to recognize, but to support, to incentivize, and to celebrate individuals who have this. Financing is key. One of the things that investors suffer from in this country is how to raise necessary finance. Our financial systems are still very weak. Therefore, the only way we can find funding is through development finance, through being able to create entities that are sufficiently robust enough for you to be able to attract foreign capital. 2 or 3 or 4 companies have done this in Nigeria. We need to look at those models and see how do we create the necessary financial incentives for this to happen. But again, we need to begin to focus on developing development financing institutions, infrastructure financing institutions, Bank of Industry needs to be strengthened a whole lot more, Agricultural Bank needs to take off and go, and then of course the Bank of Infrastructure itself needs to be given the impetus to begin to build enough resources, not just from Nigerian capital but from foreign capital to be able to take off. Fiscal is key. We need to create the right fiscal incentives, whether they be tax holidays, whether they be duty waivers, on select areas where you need to position the local economy for purposes of external competition. Let's make no mistake about it. For all the talk you have of free trade and free world and all that, every country is protecting its own. And so when Donald Trump talks about America first, it has been America first for a very, very long time. It just hasn't been celebrated notionally from a vivid point of view. Nigeria has got to begin to look at Nigeria first. What do we do to encourage Nigerian companies and give them the incentives to be able to compete in Africa? It is along these lines, for example, that I suggest that we need to begin to have product specialization or sector specializations, which are the areas where we think we have the most competitive advantages. Petroleum, oil, and gas is key. Why is it that up to now Nigeria hasn't been able to capture the African terrain of the market? You still look at how we award our contracts, whether it be crude terms, whether it be DSDP formulations, whether it be investments. How do we ensure that the African market first is number one? How do we capture that market? One of the efforts that we're doing right now is bringing together African producers. Next Monday, we'll be hosting a conference of the 19 African ministers of petroleum here. The whole idea is to begin to put together relationship nexus that enables us to look at the African market. Because make no mistake about it, in the current very competitive market environment, you've got to become sectoral in terms of regional play. You're not going to capture America. Europe is thinning out in terms of a demand base. The only countries of areas available are Asia and Africa. How do we ensure that every drop of oil that comes into Africa first and foremost comes from Nigeria? That every drop of gas that gets transported into Africa comes first and foremost from Nigeria? Those are the things that countries like ourselves and Angola will need to sit down and begin to fashion, because if we can do that, stability of our own supplies, which is going to be imperiled over the next few years as OPEC struggles to get its market capture, will become very, very critical. So oil and gas, petrochemicals, mining, agriculture, services. We can start with 4 or 5 areas and put all the policies that we need to ensure that over the next 5 years, these critical areas are solid, sufficiently financed, robust in terms of integrity, and able to take on the world and the challenges. Now, the second aspect of this discussion, obviously, is how do you open your economy in terms of foreign participation? There is almost some level of latent difficulty for investors who come into this country. First of all, they deal with issues of security. Now, when we say security, every country has its own difficulties. Just yesterday, somebody was, a woman who came to complain simply about an eldest neighbor's cough was shot. But that was accidental. You might find that if you take a crime-to-crime analysis, Nigeria may not necessarily be worse off than most countries. But it is just that, one, the publicity that we give to things that happen here, two, the focus, the certainty of a foreigner that if you come here and walk the streets, you'll be protected. We need to begin to address those models. It's not so much the incidents. So we need to take security very, very seriously. And over the next 5 years, if we're going to do this, we need to robustly invest in our security to the point where regional policing, state policing, border protection are very key. A lot of difficulties we suffer today is because our borders are porous, still porous. And so what comes from this is that a lot of industries here struggle. We need to address the issue of security. We need to address our laws. How do we utilize our laws to focus not necessarily on protectionism, but on favoritism? We need to favor those local industries through latent laws that are being passed, so they can have a grounds to be able to operate. How about transparency? Every Nigerian company that wants to play in an outward arena must be transparent. You cannot afford to be mucky about the rules and hope that nobody catches you, because invariably international rules have gotten so efficient that you will be caught. And that's why I have taken it as a point of consistent commitment to work with groups like NAITI, with CSI, but basically to say, challenging the status quo in terms of what we do is not a bad thing. I know prior to my coming, it probably was seen as an adversarial relationship. It shouldn't be. One of the things that we're putting together, I think we'll put together the first meeting that's going to involve us and NAITI, just to drill with what are the expectations, what are the areas where we have disagreements in the petroleum sector, how can we make it better? And I've charged NNPC that the rule, and not just NNPC, all the parastatals, that the rule must be one of seeing those who critique your approach as an opportunity to get better, as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to better your processes. It's not an adversarial rule. Both entities, all the entities who are involved in this dialogue are concerned with one thing: how does Nigeria get the very best from its resources? So there isn't a divergence of aim. And so over the next couple of months, you're going to see a whole lot more engagement between us, NAITI, and such like groups, just drilling on areas where there are issues, drilling on what we can do to make them better. We've just recently passed at the Federal Executive Council the gas policy, which deals with how we're going to frontally push regulation and put policy to enable us not make the same mistakes in gas as we grow, as we made in petroleum. But today, again, we're going to present the petroleum policy, policy document to the Federal Executive Council, all geared towards creating policies that focus on areas where we've seen gaps in this sector. So transparency is key. Whenever a Nigerian company gets mentioned abroad and there are stories about how it wasn't efficient, how it wasn't transparent, how the directors are moving money out, it messes up the appetite for people to want to come to play in this sector, or to create a restriction in terms of our ability to go out and actually participate in investments in those sectors. Our stock market has got to be strengthened. Over the last 10 years, returns from our stock market have been one of the best in the world. So how come we're not attracting far better investments to our stock market than, say, South Africa does? There's something obviously lacking in terms of how the perception index is of our stock market players. So we need to begin to address those. I look at 3 critical examples. I look at China. I look at what has happened over the last 10, 12 years. They've been able to transform themselves from this close community to one that are seen as massive investors of capital. Early last year, sometime, we took a trip there and got commitments from Chinese different authorities on investments of over 70 billion into the Nigerian system. We're still working to see how we can trap the actual cash back into this system. But they become massive players, especially in Africa and developing world, of capital investments. Now, but they've also transformed their local economy in such a way that it's becoming inevitable for companies to go there and invest. And so by virtue of the advantage of cheap labor, the advantage of huge market, which, by the way, Nigeria has, they've been able to make themselves the first investment destination of the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts, or literally every company that wants to play in this sector. How does Nigeria utilize the 170 million number? The fact that we say we have the highest GDP in Africa, the fact that we're fairly sufficient, hopefully, energy-wise, the fact that we have some of the best trained and skilled people. How do we translate those advantages into making Nigeria the hub of attraction, for capital? You look at India, what has happened? What did India do? Again, the same story as China. 10-year focus on very deliberate policies that create incentives for people who are playing in that sector to be able to go out and be recognized. So they've looked at various skill sets. Most of the key players all over the world now are Indians. You look at all the high-tech companies and look at who are their CEOs. Indians are taking over in a very big way. But more important, they've also set for themselves the fact that in terms of technology, in terms of medicine, they've set some very specific targets for themselves, not everywhere, but about 4 or 5 key areas they've set for themselves, and they're pushing it very aggressively. How does Nigeria copy examples to this? If you look at the Gulf. The Gulf has made a one-way success. They've been huge investors of capital because they've been able to pile up some substantial reserves. Now, they have not focused so much on making their own companies, local companies, strong participants internationally. But what they've done is basically invest in stocks and use it as a medium to save for the rainy day. So there are all kinds of models out there. Nigeria has got to have a model in terms of how it's got to go. So going forward, I think government policies and regulations are key. And I think the new wave of presidential orders that have been given are helpful in terms of focusing our attention in short term on some of the areas that we need to pay attention to. Also, some of the rules and regulations released by the Minister of Industry on an investment, on the ease of doing business is helpful, and we need to pursue those very aggressively. But more important than anything else, government policies have got to be consistent. There's got to be measurements in there on whether they're deliverable and whether they're being delivered. And there's got to be focus on international comparisons. What are we doing versus other countries? It's one global market. We need to identify, like I said, a few select areas where we have competitive advantage, and I've mentioned quite a few. We need to learn from countries, some of the ones I've mentioned here, who have succeeded in this, and see how we can borrow relief in focusing our field of play here. Now, in ending this, I will quite frankly notionally call for a 5-year time frame in which we strengthen our resource base, our economic base, getting our companies ready for international play. And I think that if we sufficiently follow some of the things that we've highlighted here, we'll begin to transform our local economy into an economy that is shaping to be active in the global space. I thank you very much for listening, and I wish you a successful conference.